The NFL Players Association, of course, initiated an investigation on Sunday into how the concussion protocols were followed.
I've been coaching for 40 years, and I've never seen anything like it before.
I want to open up this video by giving a huge shout out to my team. We both stayed up very late on Thursday night to give you guys that Tua Tagovailoa video that we were able to make at the end of Thursday Night Football. If I could summarize 75% of the comments in just one video, this would be the video. Why would the Miami Dolphins do what they did? It's a very simple question, and it's something that we're going to get into in this video. Now, I want to give you guys a disclaimer. I'm not necessarily saying that I fully believe what is being said out there. I think it's healthy to be a little skeptical about what's going on, and there is evidence suggesting why we should be skeptical of what's going on that we're going to mention in this video once again. So before we get to the content, man, if you want to go the extra mile to support the channel, you can check us out on Patreon or our channel memberships program. And of course, make sure to follow me on Twitter and on Instagram if you want to tag me in videos that you want me to cover. Now that we got all of that out of the way, Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? I wanted to open up this video by giving a huge shout out to my cousin, who is actually a neurologist that was able to explain to me what went down with Tua Tagovailoa on Thursday Night Football, which I wasn't able to reach him immediately following Thursday Night Football, but courtesy of Dr. Leon Barkadar, here's what potentially happened to Tua. Now, he suggested there's multiple things that could have happened. One, he could have suffered a spinal contusion, but what is very likely to have happened to Tua is that he suffered such a severe brain injury, like a concussion, to the point where he threw up those gang signs with his hands, which is what they call in medical terminology a fencing response. Now, a fencing response is when a person experiences an impact that's strong enough to cause traumatic brain injuries, such as a concussion, and when this happens, their arms often go into an unnatural position. It's common after someone has experienced an acceleration or deceleration injury of the brain, as the soft brain tissue slams into the hard skull, and this bruising of the higher functioning cerebrum, which is the gray matter, temporarily shuts down its function and lets the primitive brainstem temporarily take control. So if you guys don't know, different parts of the brain are responsible for taking care of different parts of your body, but that's what we know of Tua's injury. Now, here's the interesting part, because if you remember when he suffered that injury versus the Buffalo Bills, originally what the Miami Dolphins said was he suffered a back injury. Now, here's where it gets a little sketchy. If you remember, we brought in a former WWE superstar and now a PhD and a neurologist, Dr. Chris Nowinski, who explained why his injury versus the Buffalo Bills was not actually a back injury, but it was a head injury. Chris Nowinski cited that in addition to stumbling when Tua stood up and fell, he never reached for his back or leg. Instead, he reached for his head and then shook his head side to side to quote unquote clear the cobwebs. The NFL and the Dolphins take us for fools. Now, the title of my video at the time was The Miami Dolphins Failed Tua. A lot of people said, no, Tua failed Tua. Tua shouldn't have gone into the game. Now, my counter argument to this is actually another former NFL player and well-known analyst, Ryan Clark, drew a parallel that involved himself when he was in this situation and what his head coach did to protect him. Check it out.
I wanted to play in Denver, and I had assembled this team together. And I was like, we're about to go in this. I was like, I got it. And so we assembled this team, man, and we're sitting there. It's me, it's Young, my doctors, all of us. And we're like, we can do this. Like, we could get this done, Mike T. Like, I can go play. And, man, we like 5 minutes through the spiel. I stops in the middle, and he said something to me, man, that I'll always be grateful for. He was like, if you were my kid, I wouldn't even be having this conversation.
Now, before I get to what the NFL is claiming happened with the investigation of Tua's back injury, I wanted to bring you guys an update on Tua himself. And honestly, this update kind of dances on the line of being absolutely ridiculous, because for a period of time on Friday, if you went on Twitter, you would have seen McGruber as the top trending thing on Twitter on Friday. Now, you might be wondering, what the hell is McGruber? Why was McGruber trending? Well, it's because according to Cameron Wolf, following Tua being discharged from the hospital, he flew home with his team, the Miami Dolphins, and Dolphins head coach Mike McDaniel said that Tua Tagovailoa sat next to him on the plane. They talked about how he was feeling for 15 to 20 minutes, and then Tua pulled out his phone to watch McGruber, and they laughed together, per McDaniel. This is without a doubt one of the strangest PR recommended stories that I've ever heard. And this is where my skepticism comes in. Did someone in Dolphins PR say, yeah,
say that Tua pulled out his phone and watched McGruber on a plane, they'll definitely buy that.
I mean, I don't mean to get sidetracked by the wrong thing, but did McDaniel watch Tua watch McGruber on his phone with his AirPods in? Did McDaniel take out his own AirPods and they both watched McGruber together on his iPhone? I mean, I've been on many flights, okay? I know that no airplane is capable of being quiet enough for you to watch a movie on your phone with the sound coming out so your buddy next to you could see it. I've seen this with my own eyes. That's my skepticism, but I digress because I know this is not what you guys are here for. I just thought this was a very bizarre story. And it's not only Cameron Wolf that's reporting this story, by the way. This story was trending on Twitter throughout all of the United States. Look at this. McDaniel said he and Tua sat together on the plane and watched McGruber during the flight home, and that Tua laughed throughout the movie. It's like sometimes I look at these headlines and I'm like, who decided that this is news? It's just absolutely bizarre. Tua also put out a statement on Friday as well, saying, I want to thank everyone for all of their prayers and support since the game last night. It was difficult to not be able to finish the game and be there with my teammates, but I'm grateful for the support and care I've received from the Dolphins, my friends and family, and all the people who have reached out. I'm feeling much better and focused on recovering so I can get back out on the field with my teammates. Hashtag TT4G, hashtag fins up. So here's my question, and this is probably the biggest question burning on all of our minds, because did Tua suffer a concussion on Sunday prior to being put back in that Thursday? Well, here's what Tom Pelissero has to say about the situation, and the way it seems like this is being framed isn't necessarily that the Miami Dolphins knew what was happening and decided to have Tua play regardless despite suffering a concussion against the Buffalo Bills, but the fact that the Miami Dolphins followed all of the steps in the concussion protocol, and despite that, Tua still suffered the injury he suffered on Thursday. So here's where it gets interesting, because now it seems like as a result of this, both the NFL and the NFLPA are looking into potentially modifying the concussion protocols. Take a look at this
Statement that what we saw in terms of symptoms was a no-go, referring to the gross motor instability that Tua had after hitting his head and then stumbling in that game on Sunday. However, under those NFLPA concussion protocols, which are jointly negotiated, gross motor instability is a no-go if it's determined by the doctors, the team physician, in consultation with the neurotrauma expert, that it is caused by neurological issues. In this case, those doctors determined it was related to a back injury for Tua Tagovailoa.
So to put my unfinished master's in biomedical sciences to work, let me translate this for you guys. Pretty much, to make this way less complicated, when Tua stumbled against the Buffalo Bills, originally what he was brought back to evaluate is whether or not he stumbled as a result of a neurological issue, as a result of a brain injury, or just to make it very simple,
As a result of a freaking concussion.
in this instance, according to Tom Pelissero and according to the Miami Dolphins, what happened was they decided that Tua took a stumble as a result of a back injury. And since it was as a result of a back injury and not a head injury, they said, okay, Tua, go back in versus the Buffalo Bills.
I would fully expect that as part of this review, how they determined that it was not caused by neurological issues on Sunday will be a part of the conversation. And if in fact the protocols were followed, as the NFL has said this week, that they believe they were.
So to translate, Tom is saying, how did they determine that it was a back injury and not a concussion?
Then what enhancements need to take place to the protocols if in fact the response to Tua's initial injury fell below the line?
So it seems like what the NFL is trying to figure out is, one, whether or not the Miami Dolphins accurately followed the concussion protocols, which we're going to find out in a week or two. And if they did, if everything was followed to a T as they were supposed to do it, then if they put Tua's career in jeopardy, what modifications need to be made to concussion protocol to ensure something like this never happens again? On one hand, I'd like to think that the Miami Dolphins aren't stupid enough to jeopardize the career of their franchise QB. Again, why would the Miami Dolphins do this to Tua? At the same time, a part of me feels like maybe the NFL is trying to save face. Maybe they're trying to say, hey, we did our best to make sure this didn't happen, but it happened. So as a result, we're taking this seriously and we want to make sure this doesn't happen again. To be honest, I don't feel strong enough about either side to really give you guys my personal opinion, because I can see both sides being true, but I do also want to add this very important point. And it's something that no one is really discussing that I definitely want to be part of the conversation moving forward. This past week on Monday Night Football, we saw Sterling Shepard tear his ACL and as a result, lose his season. He was playing in MetLife Stadium, which uses synthetic turf, and I've never played on synthetic turf, but according to multiple athletes on Twitter, synthetic turf is a huge reason for ACL injuries and head injuries in the NFL, according to former Packers QB Kurt Benkert. Hell, according to Ari Meirov, in Tua's first injury versus the Buffalo Bills and in his game versus the Cincinnati Bengals, he once again played on synthetic turf. Athletes are saying turf is literally the equivalent of concrete. And we're talking about the NFL. I mean, look at Sterling Shepard's injury. I mean, this injury is absolutely insane to me because it doesn't look like he's doing anything too strenuous. He's just walking and then bam, his leg locks up. If you're the NFL, if you're the Shield, if you have the capital that the NFL has, don't you think it's time to do away with turf and actually play on grass and mitigate your injuries, protect your players? I mean, the players make up the league. The talent level in the NFL is absolutely phenomenal. The players just keep getting better and better and better. And you want to prolong those careers as much as you freaking can. Hopefully we could make this part of the conversation in the future. If you made it to the end, comment no more turf fields in sports. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.